there has been a request, a specific request to place this National Adi Sankara Mission in the context of the discoveries of Kalady and also of the Melpazhur Mana in Veliyanad, Kerala. All right. So that is what I'm going to talk to you about just now. This is an important question that has been raised. And so I request your attention briefly on this. I'll try to keep. So you are all familiar with Kalady. This is near Ernakulam. This is the picture that you see on the left. It is the place where the Periyar River turns at Kalady. The Shankara Janmabhoomi Kshetra is supposed to be, rather, is here actually. It's not very clear in this photograph. This photograph was taken from the Sri Sankara bridge. This is the Sri Sankara bridge, which is found or has been constructed over the Periyar River. Now, next to this is a photograph within the temple of the Trikaladi Appan temple. This is at the entrance. Here you see a bronze it's not a bas relief image, but rather it's an artifact made in bronze of Sri Sankara at the entrance of the Trikaladi Appan or Sri Krishna temple in Kaladi. On the right hand side, you see the Melpazhur Mana house. We'll talk more about both these places. I have already mentioned to you that in the early part of the 20th century, the Sringeri Acharyas, with great difficulty, brought the attention of the world to Kaladi. That is, they pointed Kaladi to the rest of the world. Within Kerala, I think both within the Nambudri and other communities as well, to a limited extent, people were aware of Kaladi, its connection to Shankara, and the importance of the place. It was not generally known outside. And in an era where the communication was almost non-existent, there was no bridge over this Periyar River, and this area was much more wooded than what it is today. The Sringeri Acharyas deputed Diwan Sheshadri Iyer, and with the assistance of the Travancore Maharaja, they acquired a piece of land here and they built the temples and monuments to Sri Sankara here. Much later, in the late 1980s, the Kanchi Matha built a rather massive monument to Sri Sankara on the MC Road at the entrance of Kaladi. So, what I would say is that this discovery of Kaladi was a very important, it was a watershed event, right? In as regard Shankara's heritage goes. As pointed out earlier, this was more a case of Kaladi being brought to the world's attention, right? With a lot of difficulty, acquiring the land, building the monuments, consecrating the temples, and running it. And so we have very great respect for all our acharyas who have laid claim to Kaladi and have, in a sense, opened the gates of Kaladi for us, devotees, and also researchers like myself, so that we can go and gather the ancient evidence which so far has missed, has evaded us. Now, the same situation exists here at Melpazhur Mana. Melpazhur Mana was in a state of disrepair until the late 80s, when Pujya Gurudev, Swami Sri Chinmayanandaji, acquired Melpazhur Mana, and he set up the Chinmaya International Foundation, which has lovingly and with great care maintained this particular um, house, which is said to be the maternal house of Shankara. So the Melpazhur Mana in Veliyanad is supposed to be the maternal house of Shankara, and here Kalady is said to be the paternal house of Shankara. That is a father's house. This is supposed to be the mother's house. Now, people ask, how does the National Adi Sankara Mission fit in the context of what has already been done with so much difficulty and at such great cost? My simple answer is that we respect, we revere, with folded hands, we revere what has been done by our acharyas. We have great respect for what has been done. We do not in any way denigrate, we do not in any way disrespect what has been done. What is being done as part of this National Adi Sankara Mission is to complement that which has been done by our acharyas, extend it by finding the ancient evidence that helps us connect Kalady and also Melpazhur Mana firmly to Shankara, because no hard evidence so far has been found at either place. And once the hard evidence is found, we can then, take the process forward, and with the good offices of the governments, get these places recognized and protected as nationally protected monuments. So that is the objective. We want to complement what has been done by the acharyas. We want to extend it by finding the ancient evidence. And once we have done that, then we will be in a good position to preserve both the evidence and also get these places declared as nationally protected monuments. Let me tell you a little bit more in detail about both Kalady and Melpazhur Mana. Specifically, let me tell you about the families connected with both these places. So, as far as Kalady and Pazhur, where in Pazhur in Veliyanad, where Melpazhur Mana is connected, these two places are separated by about 42 kilometers by walk, but if you go by road, it's more like 47 kilometers between Kalady here all the way up to Melpazhur Mana, a distance of about 40 to 47 kilometers depending on your mode of transport. Kalady is where very near Kalady is where the Kaipilli Mana, the the paternal family, the father's family of Shankara reside. And so it is the paternal home of Sri Shankara. Their ancestral home is also very close to Kalady. There are two other families that live in Kalady, this being the Kaipilli Mana and the Talayatumbilli Mana. These two families were closely associated with Shankara. They are the families that supposedly helped Shankara cremate his revered mother, Aryamba. So they live in Kalady. So as I had remarked in another video, the pointer probably for the Sringeri Acharyas was the living tradition of Shankara in and around Kalady in the form of these families. Now, I thought we could only guess this. Very recently, a member of one of these families called me up in some other context and mentioned in the passing that when the exploratory team from Sringeri had come in the early 1900s, his family had the good fortune of hosting them at Kalady. So obviously, there would have been transmission of information from these Nambudri families to the emissaries of the Sringeri Acharyas. As mentioned, these families were living in and around Kaladi, protecting the heritage of Shankara for hundreds of years, of several centuries. Now, let's take the case of Melpazhur Mana, which is further south. So, I hope I have given you the first piece of new information with regard to Kaladi itself, which I'm sure many people were not aware of. Now, if you take the Melpazhur Mana, this is the mother's home. This is where Aryamba is supposed to have hailed from. What you'll be surprised is several branches of this family, several branches, not one or two, a total of 10, but now probably only 5 or 6 physically live there. There are some of them, their houses are there, but they don't live there. We don't know where they are. So, at least, I mean, I have had the good fortune of meeting at least 5 branches in and around Melpazhur in Veliyanad. So, several branches of this family live in and around in their individually in each of their ancestral houses, by the way, very old houses. Right? And the actual family of Aryamba, one of the branches, they lived in this place, Melpazhur Mana, this photograph that I showed you earlier. If I'm lucky, I will try this particular mansion that I showed you earlier. They lived there well after the late 80s, and even though they had transferred the property to Swami Sri Chinmayanandaji, they lived there until they moved away to other parts of Kerala where they live, and they still proudly uphold the tradition of Sri Sankara. Some couple of brief words about Melpazhur Mana first. This is these photographs are officially from the Chinmaya International Foundation, provided by them. This is the a nice photograph of the main building of the family. It is basically a Nalukettu, meaning a 4-winged structure. Originally, it was an 8-winged structure. There was a wing, so 4 wings behind that. So 4 wings behind that, there were another 4 wings. 4 wings, then the rear, unfortunately, they rotted over time, and maybe 70 to 80 years ago, it fell, and they had to dismantle it. So now it is a 4-wing structure alone. Now, within this is a room which is identified to be the room where Sri Sankara is said to have been born. There was a lamp which was lit perennially by the Melpazhur Mana family within that room as a mark of identifying that particular room, that spot. The Chinmaya Mission, the Chinmaya International Foundation has placed a bronze image of Sri Sankara, which is in worship in that particular room. Now, I have had the good fortune, due to the good offices of the Chinmaya International Foundation, to go there several times and conduct a serious archaeological surveys and research within the grounds of Melpazhur Mana and outside. I have presented and written papers on this subject, which I think will come out maybe in a few months or so. And at this point, I have found late evidence within the Melpazhur Mana of Sri Sankara and Aryamba. I am in the process of uncovering older evidence. The work is ongoing, and I'm not at this point it's premature to speak about it because it is a process of discovery and survey and exploration, etc., etc. That is ongoing, and I am hopeful that within the Manna also we will discover old evidence, maybe above the ground, and if permitted, below the ground. Adjacent, very close to the Mana, is the ancient Parur Perumtrikovil, a Mahadeva or Shiva temple, of which the Melpazhur Mana and the other Parur families are, meaning the other branches of their Parur families, are all trustees, hereditary trustees. The inscriptions here have been transcribed by the Kerala state, actually by the erstwhile Travancore State Archaeological Department, and the temple architecture was later on studied by the Kerala State Archaeological Department. All these suggest about the 12th, 13th century origin of this temple. However, one fact that has been missed so far is the central part. This is the Sri Kovil or the Garbhagriha, but within that is actually a Dravida Vimana. Okay, it's a technical term. Dravida Vimana is a technical term for the shape of the particular Vimana and the rectangular inner sanctum sanctorum. And when you study that very carefully, and also the Shivalinga and many other things, this is a very, very ancient temple. This arcs back. This is something like Ekambranatha. It is a linga made of sand, essentially, and weed in this particular place. No Abhisheka is done. And that's how it is in Ekambranatha temple in Kanchipur. And also the structure of the pillars, etc., temple architecture within suggests that this is very, very old. So we have an ancient temple there, and there is a image that there's a marker related to Shankara below Yoga Dakshinamurti that I was fortunate to find very close to Melpazhur Mana. This is a Sannyasa Diksha image below Yoga Dakshinamurti. This is a classic, Shankara type image, which is it's a clear giveaway because of the presence of Yoga Dakshinamurti and Shiva Parvati at the top. This is how Shankara images are typically seen in other places, ancient images. This is a later image, 15th, 16th century, but it is about 4 kilometers or so away from Melpazhur Mana. And I was fortunate to stumble upon this particular temple, a dilapidated temple, not more than 4 kilometers from Melpazhur Mana, but the image within is about 8th, 9th century. It's a Narasimha image of 8th, 9th century, very classical, beautiful image, which suggests that the Nambudri inhabitation of this place was pretty early, at 8th, 9th century CE is this image. So they must have settled based on all these evidences much earlier there. So we are slowly sort of honing in on the ancient evidence near Melpazhur Mana, but we have far away, we have far to go. We have a lot to go, lot further to go. And hopefully with the good offices of Chinmaya International Foundation and others, hopefully we are able to continue this work and bring it to fruition. I would like to speak something about the evidence here. I do it a little bit later in this video. Now, already you're all familiar with, I don't need to say much. You all know that this is the Sri Krishna temple at Kalady. Now, this temple is attributed to the 13th century or so, based on the hereditary trustees. That is the Rapilli Mana and the Teleyatumpilli Mana. They claim that a couple of the walls, caught fire, they fell down, etc. They were rebuilt. But what is required is a more detailed architectural and iconographic, meaning studying the images within the temple and the architecture and things like that. But this is an old structure, medieval, either medieval or late medieval. So that is the one old piece of evidence. Again, there we don't have any hard evidence linking Shankara to this particular temple. Now, the other structures are all modern structures. This is the Janmabhoomi Sthala, and this is the Adi Sankara Stupi on MC Road in Kalady. So, the hard evidence has evaded us there. However, you go little bit into Kalady and its outskirts, you come across temples which are pretty old. On this side here, you see the Avanam God Saraswati temple. This Saraswati temple is on one side of the runway of the Cochin airport. It actually sits on one side of the runway, and they have very nicely protected this particular temple. It's an ancient temple. When you look at the architecture, nothing much. We cannot make out very much. But I was really fortunate to be able to examine the image, right? Itself. So they have a golden figurine which covers the image, and within it, I mean, behind it is the actual image which is in worship, which is quite typical in Kerala. So they were very kind enough to show me the original image by lifting the golden figurine out. And you can see that this is a very ancient image. It's just basically a stone with a lot of striations and holes and things like that. You immediately know it's a Swayambhu image, very old, right? Shankara is said to have had his Aksharabhyasam in this place. However, again, the hard evidence linking Shankara to this place. That is, this is an old temple based on the image. There is a legend saying that Shankara did his Shankara's Abhyasa, Aksharabhyasa was done here. But with the missing links, missing evidence to tie these two together, basically the evidence to tie these two things together is missing. And so we have to search, inch by inch over the ground and ultimately even maybe excavate below. On the other side of the runway, exactly a mirror on the other side, is the Shivanarayana temple of Tirunayathur. This is a temple which is a Shiva temple in which Shankara is said to have begun worshipping Vishnu. There's a legend, something similar to that. And today, worship of both Shiva and Vishnu is conducted within. Important fact is, this temple celebrated its 1200th, believe me, 1200th anniversary in the year 2011. They did a big celebration, etc. The tradition says they are at least 1200 years old. The Kerala State Archaeological Department has studied the temple architecture. There are some old elements here, and say that look, 11th, 12th century is where we see the ancient elements from this particular temple. Now, my conjecture is that this temple was probably rebuilt around the 11th, 12th century, and those elements have some of those have been preserved. Old elements have probably fallen away. This is not uncommon in the temples of South India. And the belief in the Avanam Kot Saraswati temple, they believe that this temple is 1500 years old. I mean, that image is very ancient. So certainly we can say that, it's old, right? Very old. Even at the Tirunayathur temple or this place, legendary connection is there. There are legends about Shankara, both these places. And people believe and they come worship, saying that this is a place where Shankara worship. But hard evidence, we still have to locate and tie things together. The Kalady Mana, father's family of Shankara, has an ancient temple, an ancient Shivalinga, which they have. And this temple is in a completely dilapidated, ruined state. Temporary enclosure has been made and a roof has been made temporarily to enclose the Shivalinga within to prevent further damage. But all the walls and the the water chute, which is called the pranala outside, all of that is all sort of really highly just fallen down. This is another ancient temple. Now, the Kalady Mana believes that this is, the original temple where Shankara's parents and Shankara are said to have worshipped. However, they also point to the existence of several ruined structures within the dense wooded area along, the a branch meaning a small tributary or a small rivulet that feeds into the Periyar. Along that, where there is dense undergrowth, grass, and small, trees and bushes and things like that. They say that there are several ruined structures which have been in existence for a long time and have really not been surveyed and studied. So these are things that we would like to really go and study, because that will give us the hard evidence linking this place to Shankara, is my belief. What I wish to say, one thing that I wish to say is that many a time the evidence regarding one temple will be found at a place miles, sometimes several hundred miles away. I'll give you an example. An ancient inscription. There is a temple called Tirumuzhikulam. Okay, and that temple is near Kalady, near all these places. It is about 15, 16 kilometers from these places. 17 kilometers to be precise. At Tirumuzhikulam is an ancient Lakshmana temple. It's a Divyadesha. But an old inscription about Tirumuzhikulam, I mean, talking about 9th century inscription in Kerala, okay, very difficult to find, right? It is found in north, in Malappuram, in the Chukapuram Dakshinamurti temple. To the best of my recollection, I think it is in the Chukapuram Dakshinamurti temple. It mentions Tirumuzhikulam Kacham. It is a contractual land agreement that was designed at Tirumuzhikulam and replicated elsewhere. So that Tirumuzhikulam Kacham is mentioned in all the way up in Malappuram, right, way north in Kerala. So the chances are that evidence about many things connected to Kalady or to Melpazhur Mana will be found in other parts of Kerala. This is not uncommon. For example, the earliest inscription mentioning the name Nataraja with regard to the Chidambaram Nataraja, right? The name of the Lord as Nataraja is mentioned not in an inscription from the Chidambaram temple, but from a temple in the Pandya country, which means somewhere, near Pattukotte or Avdiyar Kovil, somewhere in that area, in a Pandya temple, all the way, south from Chidambaram. Not uncommon. I myself have seen evidence in Tamil Nadu also, where you find information about Chidambaram somewhere near Trichy. Okay, about 33 kilometers north of Trichy. I was astounded to find some very ancient Pallava sculptures connecting it back to Chidambaram. So, in the older part of Tamil Nadu and Kerala, which was called Tamilakam, it is not uncommon to discover pieces of evidence regarding one place in another place. People would write, in inscriptions about, because if it's an important place, they would write about it somewhere else. It's not that deliberately they did that, but they alluded to that place, saying, this is very important. We presented something, we gifted something, etc., etc. They may be residing in the other place. So I believe that we have to do a very thorough survey and possibly some excavations near, so in and around Kalady and in and around Melpazhur Mana. But we should also be prepared that these surveys and excavations would be done in other places, because these families originally hailed from Malappuram. So we may find evidence in Malappuram, we may find it near Trichur, in Thiruvanam, we may find it somewhere near Kalady, in Tirumozhikulam. We don't know. Along their migratory path, we may find some of the evidence that they had, as they migrated to these places, we may find some evidence which helps us tie up the things in and around Kalady and Velina. So we have to be open to these kind of studies in other places, excavations in other places, surveys in other places. That is something that I wanted to specifically mention to you. I wish to conclude by saying two things. One is that, again, we have the greatest respect for whatever all our acharyas have done before us, and all we are doing is continuing from where they left to complement what they are doing, finding the hard evidence to tie up all these places back to the Bhagavad Pada Acharya Sri Sankara. And whatever we are doing is new work to find all this hard evidence, both above the ground and by digging and excavating below the ground. So we don't in any way disrespect or denigrate what the great acharyas have done. We are using what they have done as a starting point. I mean, they have given us a beautiful foundation. We are erecting the structure above it, to so to speak, figuratively. Right? Um, Another thing I want to say is, there is like this. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of pieces of information here today that you saw, which are all new. Same way, in another video called, the Shankara, on the trail of Sri Shankara in Kerala, I will put forth a huge number of places, along the way. Even in Kaladi and in other places, which Shankara is associated with in Kerala, which most of us will not be aware of. So watch out for that upcoming video. And I hope I have laid to rest any concerns that we are not doing anything in counter to what the acharyas did, who came before us, but rather we are complementing, extending the work that they have done. Thank you very much.